Breakfast with Tiffany is back, and what a way to reintroduce the series than to start with today's conversation. Today we have CMA award winners Maddie&Tae and 9 incredible women who happen to be teaching in the music education field. So what is today's conversation all about? It's about female inclusion and representation in the workplace, specific to the music industry and also music education. So I'm elated to have this conversation and really excited for you to hear the similarities that both our, our female artists experience in the music industry, but also how our female band directors experience it within the music education sector. So let's get to it. So I'm going to start with Maddie&Tae. I am so curious to know, were you aware of the challenges that would exist in pursuing a role in country music or in music in general as female artists?
We had no idea that it was a thing, that there's radio programmers that we have been told, like our radio promoter was like, hey, I need you to play the Maddie&Tae single. And he straight up said, I don't play female music. And we had no idea that was even a thing. I didn't think your gender or just anything about you should affect if you're more capable of the job in any format. We had no idea. We were very, very naive. We kind of got thrown to the wolves and, into this like dream job really. But, when we were 17,
I feel like it wasn't until we wrote Girl on a Country Song, because the topic itself was more like, okay, there's a little bit of a, there's way more guys on the radio speaking of this one topic of women being perfect and tan and just ready to hand a man a beer at all times, which is so unrealistic.
Yeah, I'm like, no, you could get me the beer because
right. But we didn't have any idea that kind of also played into how women were being played on the radio, and if they were being played on the radio, until we were on radio tour and seeing it firsthand of people purely saying they cannot play our music because of our gender. So we were very, very naive, but we definitely learned real quick.
I'm curious, now that you've heard a little bit about the music industry side, I'm curious from our amazing band directors on the call, what you all have experienced. Of course, within music education, we know that, female representation does exist. You all, though, represent a very specific piece of the music education sector or pie, which is in, actual band leadership, whether it's marching, jazz, you name it. I'm just kind of curious your experience, and were you aware that it exists prior to, joining or thinking about joining your career?
In May, 2 weeks before I graduated from college in instrumental music ed, I had this job interview, and I wanted to be a high school band director, and nobody ever told me that I couldn't do this because I was female. But so I go to this interview, and the principal says, the introductions, and then he goes, "What makes you think you can do this job?" Well, so being naive, I started saying my qualifications. Well, I'm graduating from Southern Miss and this and that. He interrupts me and says, "No, what makes you think you can be a high school band director and be a female?" And I said, wow. "Why did you give me this interview?"
Good for you. Gosh, that makes I'm so angry for you.
So, it never dawned on me that I could not do the job as a high school band director because I was a female.
I'm a little older than Isla. I got 2 more feet. I graduated from college in 1972. Started teaching in 72. Got a little job down. They never mentioned it, and I was told by my high school band director's wife. She said, "You're going to be a music major?" So I said, "Yes, ma'am, I am. That's what I want to do. That's all I ever wanted to do." I said, "Why?" And she said, "Well, the only way you need to be a music major is if you're going to marry a band director." And I thought, okay. So, went through college, had some wonderful mentors, graduated, got a little job in Pulaski, and
I know where that is.
Giles County.
Mhm.
And I was the high school band director, and nobody ever mentioned the fact that I was female or anything.
I'm curious if all of you had female band directors that you looked up to, that is the reason why you went into the field, or is the reason that you didn't have female band directors the reason why you went into the field?
For me, I knew that I was only aware of one. I'm in Los Angeles, so I was only aware of one other female band director, and she had won a championship, a city band championship. And so that was kind of my inspiration. And I said, well, you know what? I want to be a female band director that wins a championship, and being a person of color, I wanted to be that first person. And
Nice.
there was definitely, I didn't know of any other females. I probably had one Black female teacher in my entire schooling in public school.
Wow.
And so I wanted to be that trailblazer, and I knew that going out that I had to be the very best that I could possibly be because of, being in a male dominated environment, band directors, right? And definitely of not seeing anyone of color. And it wasn't until, quite honestly, maybe like a couple of years ago that I saw someone, and it was because of Zoom and being online with band directors from all over the country, that I finally found somebody. And I was like, oh my gosh, Black band directors, high school band directors really do exist.
I can add, it wasn't a band director, but it was a college professor where I still have this image of Cynthia Cyrus standing there while she was teaching us medieval and Renaissance music. So it was a very thrilling class. I still remember in undergrad, I saw her teaching. Her husband was in the military, so he was somewhere in the world, but he was out of the country at that point. And they had 3 children, and she had her oldest and her middle child that were playing underneath a table in the same room while she was teaching a collegiate class. And she was nursing her third one in a rap. And while she's teaching and having 3 kids, and she seemed so calm and poised, that was an image I will never forget. And I was like, you know what? That's what I want to do. I think that's amazing.
Oh my God.
Tay and I, just to be totally transparent, that's a very valid fear that I have, in my brain as a female artist. There's been this thing like, if you get pregnant, you can't tour. If you get pregnant, you can't do, and I'm like, okay, well, I love my job, but also family for us is number one, always. And we both want to be moms. And I think sometimes society just underestimates us. And I'm like, that's fine. We're still going to birth children and work jobs and pay the bills and nurse babies while we're that story is very inspiring. And I do think for us with the mentors, we went on tour with Miss Carrie Underwood, which was a dream a couple of years ago. And similar story to yours, ERIN, she was nursing a baby, a 4-month-old, and being a superstar and running a business, running an athletic brand, running, just doing meet and greets. She did everything and she did it. And I'm like, well, shoot, I guess I can too.
I too am a mom and a high school band director. I'm a single mom and a high school band director. Wow. And that, I probably have more problem with myself doubting that I'm doing a good job at, there's been so many times where I feel like I'm rocking the mom role, but I feel like I really am letting the career go way to the bottom of the heap, and or vice versa. There would be times where I would say goodbye when he was much younger. I would say goodbye to my child on Friday morning when I dropped him off for school, and then I wouldn't see him again till Sunday. And you just feel like I'm a horrible mother. And so there's definitely a struggle within, and that's probably being in large part created by society. But I mean, I have to say that I feel like I put that on myself probably more than anybody else.
And Stacey, I would also add too that I mean, think of the modeled behavior you are also showing your child, right? That you are an incredible leader, and that you are dedicating your role in education to transform the lives of students, right? Like, I think that is an inspiration. Like, don't ever underestimate how your children might look at you. I mean, I think that we talked about, I was asking the question of you all, was there this female band director or a mentor that kind of helped guide you? I mean, you may be doing that for your child, right? Boy or girl, or however they self-identify, like, they know that there's no limit, because I watched my mother do everything. I grew up in a single parent home, and I believe that I can literally accomplish anything because I watched my mother do literally everything. And the minute someone told her she couldn't, she was able to show them that she could. And so I also think that, well, maybe I didn't get that in school, boy, did I get it at home. And so, I mean, yes, we're talking about the influence that you have on your classroom, but man, you have impact all around you.
I had it easy in the fact that my dad is a retired band director. So I was brought up in the ranks of he didn't force me. I chose my own path. So at home, I never knew there was a struggle. It was what it was going to be. And I think that set me up kind of a little bit in the ivory tower, because I am also a clarinet performancer. My undergraduate is in clarinet performance from Eastman. And I fought to get in there because of being a female. Once I was there, I fought for my spots to start auditioning around the country as a performance major in major symphony orchestras. Atlanta, Denver, they didn't want females. They wanted to go after males. And several of the personnel directors kind of set it behind the back doors, which was shocking to me, overwhelmingly shocking. But if you'll notice, the majority of principal clarinet players around the country in major symphonies are males.
I am from Tennessee. And so I just wanted to shout out my mentors, because some of them are here. So I had one female band director for 1 year, Marianne Coleman, and then she left our school. I think she retired. Male band directors back to back to back after that. But then I think it was when I was in high school at Joanne's school here in Nashville, they named the football field after her. And that was such a huge deal. My family is huge football people. And so I remember, I don't know if I'm from Tullahoma. I don't know if we played a game there or if we did a competition there or something, but it was just this huge deal. My mom and I like flipped out. You get to march on the field that's named after a female band director. That's so cool.
The first time it really occurred to me that a female could do this and that could be a positive thing was when we went to John Overton and I found out about Joanne Hood. I mean, that was truly the first time I went, oh my God, a woman can do this. And she's done it. No surprise that she's amazing and successful, but I kind of had no clue. And then had the same benefit of getting to student teach with Susan, and same thing, who I want to be when I grow up, red hair and all, no, no doubt. So I get, it's funny because I'm also from Middle Tennessee and grew up in that same area to see this lineage of really strong women that have influenced, and I think maybe even not intentionally, just by their hard work and the things they've earned and the precedents that they've set. Stacey definitely falls into that too. The lineage of strong women that have turned out to be amazing band directors or just amazingly successful in whatever it is. And it definitely gives me hope that, you know, hopefully 20 years from now, there's going to be some future students that think the same about what we're doing, and that we're all going to be able to continue to encourage each other and continue to create this. Because I'm sure that as amazing as Susan and Joanne are, I'm sure her initial goal was not, let me go out and be an amazing band director and they're going to name the football field after me. And one day young women are going to look at the football field and go, I can be a band director, but because she worked hard and she overcame those things, that's the lasting impact she's had. And same thing with Susan. So it's really cool to see it, and I hope they know it, and hope that we're all working to create that one day too for the future students.
I'm just blown away by the talent and like just how beautifully spoken each one of y'all are. I'm trying to be a sponge. So somebody talk besides me, because I'm in the crash course of how to be a badass woman right now.
Same.
So I want to call on Susan, because Susan, I am curious, like obviously you've been mentioned, you were able to help us put together this all-star cast. I'm kind of curious, like from your perspective, like what was your inspiration in getting into it? And do you recognize the role that you play, even beyond just being a band director, that like young women are really looking at you as being a form of inspiration for them?
With people here, there's a wide variety of experience levels. And certainly Joanne, you know, she knows how I feel about her. She's amazing. And I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her, like literally. And so she and so many others, you know, forged the path for us. And I wanted to include younger teachers so that they could also hear that. Because like Sammy and Brittany, you're not having to put up with the things that Isla and Joanne and Beth did. So I think it's good to hear it on both sides. And then we have people in the middle. Stacy's kind of right in the middle of that. But I think we all recognize the role that the women that have come before us. But I don't see myself as someone, I'm not doing this for that reason. I remember one thing that Joanne wrote in my senior yearbook. She knew I was going into music, and she said, use your, how to say it? Use your femininity to your advantage, but don't dwell on it. And it took me a long time to realize what she meant.
Wow.
I think she meant, what I believe what it meant to me was that I just needed to be who I was, be the strong person, be the strong woman that I was. But don't just have a chip on my shoulder because I was around a bunch of men. I just needed to be me. I'm just doing my gig, helping children be better at what they're playing, trying to make them be better human beings, and just band is a vehicle by which I do it.
I'm curious to know, Maddie&Tae, like from your perspective, you know, we've been obviously talking to our amazing educators, but I'm curious from your perspective, if you feel the weight of having, you know, young female listeners, quite frankly, young listeners understand the value that exists in having female representation in music. Do you feel that pressure?
I feel like the pressure I feel is different than the pressure that I felt when I was 15, 16, coming up and starting to make music. Back then, the pressure that I felt was that I needed to be perfect and present this perfect image, to be an idol and not mess up, and did lots of media training to make sure we didn't say the wrong word in the wrong setting, and our shoulders were at the perfect height when we sat, and all of those things that just were ingrained in me, that to be someone that someone looked up to, I had to be perfect. But now the pressure that I feel, it's more just motivation to be exactly what you said, Susan, to be me, to be us. And right now, Maddie and I are in a place with our music and our lives where we're just like, we have so many flaws, so many quirks. We are so far from perfect, but we are us, and we show up every day as that, and that's enough. And that's what we tell ourselves, and that is a victory.
I think one of the biggest compliments as a female artist is when parents come up, like in a meet and greet, and they say, thank you for the example that you set for my kids. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I hope, like, you know, like that's a lot of pressure. I mean, because I'm not perfect. I am flawed. I have so many flaws. And sometimes I, you know, mess up words on stage, or, you know, accidentally stub my toe and say a cuss word in the microphone by accident. It's just, there's so many moments like that I worry, you know, oh gosh, am I still setting a good example? And I think one of the biggest compliments is that parents that feel like their young girls and young kids can look up to us and know that it's something that they can accomplish. And you know, I just try my best, but like Tay said, we definitely can't set a perfect example, but the example that we do set is an honest one. And I think that counts for something. And I feel that way for every single one of you on this call, that, you know, we're not perfect, and that's what makes us really cool humans. And, you know, you all are setting a very honest and truthful and real example for your kids. And that is more than enough, you know, for the kids that you're impacting.